Everything's broke. The economic plunder and blunder that put us all under. A lyrical, satirical, economic parable. By me, A. Gumby Breton. Illustrated by Tommy Siegel.
Sally and I, we were taking a walk, and saw with a shock something new to the block. A failed filthy fox who had taken some knocks in a cold cardboard box among rubble and rocks. Familiar to me, he had been on TV, but now you'd agree he was no bourgeoisie. And as we walked by him, he promptly awoke and said,
"Gimme $1, I'm totally broke." I couldn't be franker, I once was an anchor, was wildly pro-business, pro-market, pro-banker. But now, oh the rancor, our country, they sank her, while every posh pranker got swanker and swanker.
He looked kind of crazy, but urgently spoke.
I'll tell you why everywhere, everything's broke. We once were alive when communities thrived, when neighbors had drive to help neighbors survive. The team was supreme since we all shared one dream, with a positive steam from a positive theme. Through patient pursuit, great progress took root, a prosperity that grew life-giving fruit. Wealth wasn't equal, but nobody cared. Prosperity grew, and the growing was shared. But then came a problem, an ill absolute, with the prosperity and its critical fruit. Its growth was deformed in a manner unhealthy. The prosperity only grew for the wealthy. It's almost enough to a riot provoke. The whole social contract had truly been broke. And I, feeling bright, got on screen every night to fight that the system was quite all right. So mommy and dad worked as much as they could. What chance had they stood, for it did them no good. And hoping for Junior a better tomorrow, the only way left to keep up was to borrow. All these poor families in all of this debt had to be made to look like a good bet. To pull off that swindle would be quite a feat. Enter the Wizards of Walrus Street. These guys had magic, or so we were told. A wave of their wands would turn garbage to gold. The wizards would package the garbage with glee, and each time they wrapped it, collected a fee. If you're shrewd, I should mention, you're screwed by extension. That rot was then bought a whole lot by your pension.
Business is booming, we can't make enough. Simply rewrapping the same crummy stuff. The stuff is rock solid, it's AAA grade. Ignore that the grader is someone we paid.
Ignore that the grader was Looney and Finch. That AAA stamps from these two were a cinch. On government bonds, they were stringent and tough, but you got an A if you paid them enough. And that's how they sold us some grade A manure. The graders are rich, 'cause their standards are poor. And I, on the news, did not choose to accuse. I'd schmooze with their crews and announce, "They can't lose!" The wise few said,
Wait, smell the cold cappuccino.
They knew then what we know. 'Twas all a casino. There's two kinds of bankers, these financial gods. One lacking talent and both of them frauds. The first type makes do with what brains they were given, forced to get rich flippin' coins for a livin'. They flip for your savings, it's on your behalf. Heads you win extra, they can keep half. Tails you lose big, it's the market you see. They'll settle for only a nominal fee. Winners keep flipping while new flippers join. Thousands of flippers each flipping our coin. If you take statistics, you're likely to know that someone will get several heads in a row. They'll call him a genius, they'll praise his technique. In truth, he was only a yutz on a streak. The flipper gets rich winning dollars and fame, and if he gets tails, why the market's to blame. And then there's the wizards, the ones who had brains, who moved around money and skimmed off the gains. The more that they fooled us to think there was profit, the more and the more and the more they skimmed off it. Happy to make us a generous deal, our profits were fake, but their bonus was real. A sinister sector of mirrors and smoke. The walrus was wealthy, but ethically broke. I, being nice, watching market and price, gave savings advice on my show twice or thrice. Mortgage your house for a couple of bucks. Trade it for stocks as your broker instructs. Repeat and repeat as your house prices climb, for house prices only go up all the time. And go up they did. They would double and double, inflating a bubble, equating to trouble. And old Alvin Wingspan, the birdie in charge of tightening valves if the bubble got large, he said,
It's much greater to let it inflate. A good regulator does not regulate.
So as is their nature, the bubble then popped. The middle class standing when music was stopped. A lifetime of savings was in their abode, which now was worth less than the money they owed. Meanwhile, the bankers used walrus cojones for losing our money. They took home a bonus. Rewards they awarded themselves were quite handsome in holding the rest of the country for ransom. Looks like a pretty good gig to have, don't it? The best way of robbing a bank is to own it. Facing foreclosure and life on the street, families were forced to make meager ends meet. The share that they shopped, well, it drastically dropped. Consumer economies suddenly stopped. When losses in tax, public works got the axe, with teachers and firemen flat on their backs. Feeling quite recently reasonably rich, we'd driven directly down into a ditch. Something had happened that everyone missed. A rude little twist, that our jobs don't exist. Even hard it would prove to the savvy job spotter. You can't up and move with a house underwater. Unsure, insecure, oh we certainly were. We hoped for a cure from the entrepreneur. Lemonade Stan had a lemonade stand. Though meagerly manned, he refused to expand.
Desire to hire, you must understand, will only transpire once buyers demand. If homeowner debt were relieved or reset, they'd pay me, I bet, for their whistle to wet. Demand creates hiring sooner than later. The customer, he is the true job creator.
So we stiffed our bankers when mortgage was due. Then they stiffed investors, now they were broke too. The whole complex system was ready to choke. Without a strong bottom, the world would go broke. Without any doubt, we would need a bailout. Help the homeowners, the people would shout. Like minnows need algae, I make no apology. Enjoy this analogy from fishbowl biology. Big barracuda, his tummy takes trout. The trout munches minnow, it's all figured out. Each of the fish knows its place in the chain. Everyone's fed and they never complain. But what if the minnow is starving for kelp? A wise barracuda would buy some to help. For food at the bottom makes food at the top. Throughout the whole system, the hunger will stop. But Big Barracuda wants more than his share, and clamors that handouts to minnows aren't fair. Though minnows, indeed, it's agreed, are in need, in greed he'll proceed to eat all of the feed. When faced with the question what others might eat, he says, "Post-digestion, I'll leave you a treat." So Big Barracuda gets bigger with bloat, and lectures the fish who go cross-eyed and float. We did the same thing when we covered our losses. We paid it directly to bankers and bosses.
Bail out the poor and work hard they won't.
So we bailed the wealthy who already don't.
It's clear then,
They said.
since you came to our rescue, we get one more bonus. We must have impressed you.
And regular people were left in a hole, while big barracudas got fat on the dole.
Why prosecute fraud? Why brandish the rod? Forgiveness, forgiveness, that's what we applaud. But mortgage forgiveness, why that just sounds odd. You homeowners must learn your lesson, by God.
We saw in our scopes what a turnaround takes, with highest of hopes and the highest of stakes. In each generation, in each coming age, the need hits the nation for populist rage. When wealthy are hoarding and thwarting our trust, their power distorting to all that is just. When power of markets is out of control, the people reclaim their empowering role, rewriting the rules that were radically lax. Instead, we tea-partied and whined about tax. We squandered so sadly the change we could be, while Fat Cat so gladly supplied us the tea. No mortgage forgiven and no fraudster jailed. This chance we were given, we epically failed.
The real estate bubble, it triggered your trouble that led you to rubble in rags and in stubble? Is that how you fell to so sloppy a slob? The fox replied.
Well, that ain't half of it, Bob. They certainly robbed us, both coming and going. The key is in knowing how long it's been growing. We've all been the butt of a sick-sorted joke. I'll tell you why everywhere everything's broke. To be continued. Read more and buy the book on everythingsbroke.com. Also available on Amazon.